Hello everyone, my name is Corazar, and welcome back to the Vintage Story Guide. We are back in the world after an episode of delving into the dangerous depths of the world, where our new armor, that is sitting right here on this stand, took a pretty serious beating. Even our helmet took 200 durability out of its 1800. So, we came out of that with some pretty decent spoils, but we didn't ultimately find what we were looking for, which is a translocator that could take us to faraway lands. However, we are home, and this tree just grew right next to the house. It is... Actually, I kind of like it, but I might trim it away from the roof. Anyway, we are home, and being home has inspired me to work on the home. There are a few things that we haven't quite gotten to do. A few things. Just a couple. Like, this completely blank patch of wall right here. And I thought today would be a great day to tackle kind of the most glaring, I think, issue with our home, is that we don't have an interior. We have a couple pretend rooms. We have a very blocky fireplace. We have these ovens in a rudimentary brickish oven space. I did finally put some shelving up here to move these crocks off the floor, but that's the only concession I've made to the interior for a while. We also have these beautiful stacks of peat here. And as you can see, we have no second or third floor or anything, just windows and then roof. So today, I want to tackle getting some, but probably not all, of this interior done. We're not going to have it all decorated today, and it certainly won't be chiseled to the extent that I want to have it eventually, but I would like to get at least the floor plan in for the second and third floors, and then whatever the attic space is going to be. I'd like to have that sort of roughed in. But first, there is a sort of long process that I want to begin in this episode, and unfortunately, it's not going to be continued for a while, because we need to start with pickling some vegetables, and that can take quite some time. I want to finally get into cheese making, and for that purpose, I have set up some barrels here so that we can have a space to process the cheese and all of the parts that go into it. Now, things that we need for cheese are, of course, sheep. And we have 4 pregnant sheep, or I think one needs another bite to eat before she can mate. And from these sheep, we will get milk for 20 days after they give birth. But in order to start the cheese making process, you need not only milk, but also a pickled vegetable, because we need to curdle the milk. Unfortunately, getting a pickled vegetable means we need to spend something like 20 days or so waiting for the vegetables to pickle. So I'm going to very painstakingly carry 5 buckets of water over to this barrel in here, and we'll get this started. I sensed another out-of-the-way water source in my future. So we now have this barrel full of water, and to this barrel we're going to add 25 salt. That gets us 50 liters of brine. Each liter of brine will pickle 1 vegetable. And we have tons of them that are... some of them are already going bad. So we're going to just take out some of these that are maybe not super bad. And we will just take 50 of them. And we are going to seal those in here. And we will come back in... it's 14 days, not 20. Okay. So in 2 weeks, we will be able to start the cheese making process. And in the meantime, after those sheep give birth, I will start milking them, and I will show you that process when the time comes. And this salt is something that I had gotten from the commodities trader between episodes, a couple episodes ago, and I purchased it as halite stones, so those were put into the quern, and I let those process while I worked on other things around the house. So, building out the interior of our house, I'm going to gather a few supplies here and take it upstairs and talk about the direction I want to go with it. I want to start in this room because I plan to have a staircase right over here that will take us to the second floor and deposit us very close to the exit to our bridge. So it's important to get this sort of functional, kind of clunky piece out of the way before we start filling in everything else, because I'd rather not have to cut the stairs into something we've already designed and built on the second floor. So I'm going to start with that, and we'll see where this takes us. And I am going to move this stuff out of this room temporarily and find new homes for it. Okay, I have the basics of how this area is going to operate. I understand that for the time being, I'm just putting these large slabs up here just so I have some floor to walk on, and we will bring them down and change them as we need to once we figure out what we're doing with the different walls and get them to joint the ceiling. And a heavy temporal storm's coming. So we have the stairs here coming up over the door, and then turning at a little landing, and continuing up. And to the right here, I'm going to have a little railing, and I just have these slabs set vertically here just to show where it's going to be, but it's going to be much more of a sliver, like right here, like a metal railing with a wooden handrail. And then that will allow us to move back and forth into our bridge here, and then that gives us a lot of space up here to work with. So I'm going to just cover this as if we were going to floor the entire area, and then we'll see what we can do from there. So here, and I have come armed with lanterns instead of torches, here is our blank canvas. And I already went ahead and I punched out a hole for the window that's going to go here, because we are going to want a window in this room. And I'm kind of thinking about punching out a couple dormers, like a small one here. The only problem is this is an even number of roof tiles, so I'd kind of want to center it, which would require punching out 2 blocks to make the dormer. And I kind of only wanted it to be like a single little tiny window, so I might fiddle around with that a bit and see what I can do there. But that might come later. And I'm kind of thinking that for this room, this might be its own distinct room. And this might be some kind of bedroom or private dancing room or studio of some sort. I have a couple different rooms in mind, one of them being a chiseling studio as well, so that could also be a good candidate for this room as well. In this area, I want to break it up into maybe 2 or 3 zones, possibly with like an open breakfast area, because we don't have, well, we do have this room down here, which will eventually be the dining room, but I kind of want to have like an upstairs breakfast room too. Maybe here, where we can look out over our trees, I guess, over the lands below, while we eat our breakfast, and I guess it's porridge with blueberries or something else. It would also make sense to mark out where our chimneys come up from below. I'm just going to knock these out so I can do that a little more easily. Because, one, it wouldn't make sense to just have, you know, a hearth that dumps its exhaust straight into the rest of the house, or goes nowhere and disappears mysteriously, even though that's what actually happens in-game. But I think it would make more sense to have these chimneys come up here, and eventually have a place where these come out of the top of the house. Now this one might be a little more problematic, so I might end up sort of shunting the chimney for this out the side of the house instead. But this one could also become a second floor hearth. It wasn't uncommon for older buildings to have a single chimney that serviced multiple floors, and so you'd have a fireplace here, and then behind that would be the chimney that services all the different fireplaces in that vertical area. So maybe this could be our breakfast area next to the hearth, so that in the winter we can stay warm while we munch on our muesli. Well, I'm going to go and prep for and ride out this temporal storm, and we will consider further options when we're back. Okay, we are back after that temporal storm. Didn't get much of a haul, only 3 rusty gears and I think 2 temporal gears, which we don't need. And I had a few thoughts as to what to do, at least here. I'm thinking it might be nice to cut away this floor here and have this sort of open section. Give our entrance room, our little sitting room, more breathing room, and then create some interest in this floor by having a railing here that follows along this side and would match this railing, and then could just continue the whole way down the staircase. And then, if we're feeling bold, we could maybe put some kind of shelving here, and this would need to be chiseled to thin it out a little bit, but we could put a shelf right there, and then maybe put some of our vessels on it, especially some of the colorful vessels that we can buy from the artisan. If I can find that blue one, I can demonstrate. So we could cover this with some vessels, maybe leave a couple blank spaces so it doesn't look too cluttered, maybe even put a flower or a tree in a pot there, and just fill that space up with something that creates this interest. And that way from here, we can also see up into our little breakfast room. For our second floor rooms, I'm still thinking of keeping this as its own larger space. Over here, I do think I want to go with having this chimney just sort of disappear, because if we create the room space needed to give a hallway for getting onto the bridge, we're going to end up with this really tiny room, this 3x3 room, which might not be a bad bedroom, but the location of this chimney is kind of inconvenient. It would sort of force us to create a wall that cuts off the window. And I don't really want to do that, so I might just sort of pipe this over, or we could just pretend the chimney doesn't exist and that we're not just, you know, suffocating ourselves in our own house. But if we remove this from consideration, and we'll leave that there for now just so we know where it is, we could create a room right here that is now 5x3. And this is still small, but it makes for a tidy little bedroom. That then leaves room for us to create a space here, perhaps with a doorway here instead. And this room can then benefit from the split fireplace. We can have the hearth out here to warm the breakfast room, and then the hearth in here will be for keeping the bedroom warm on those cold winter nights, or rainy August nights. So I'm going to put some more thought into this and get some blocks in, and we will see where we end up. I lied. Something I didn't think about was, where do we put our next staircase to get to the 3rd floor? And I have a couple thoughts on that. One is, we could put a second staircase right here, and going up like this, just like the downstairs, just in reverse. Now that would leave a very tight walkway here, even with the much thinner railing we're going to have. So I'm not sure I'm in love with this idea. Another option would be to have the staircase go up from, say, here, maybe, and have it wind its way around this area. The only problem I have with that is it kind of runs into this dormer here and this roof space on this side. We'd probably need to have it turn right here. I think I would rather have it come out somewhere over here. So what I might do is I might chop up that room area a little bit and see what we can fit in there. Maybe even shrink our master bedroom a little bit. After some thought and deliberation, I decided what we're going to do is we're going to sneak these stairs right in here. And how we're going to do that? We're going to cheat, of course. My plan with these stairs, which of course is going to change their orientation like that, ugh. And then what we could do is we put the plaster here, and we just make a rather thin plaster wall out of this with the chisel. Like so. Now, if we go and get a door, we can not do that. We can put the door in like this, and now it's flush with the wall. and yet we still have our staircase here we can go up. I think I like this solution. It gives us the most bang for our buck, and I think it's pretty clever. I like it. Well, I'm going to get some walls roughed in, and I'm going to get the fireplaces started, and then we will see where that leaves us. I think I might need to expand this walkway here, just because this fireplace is going to come out a little bit, but we will see. And I'll bring y'all back to show you what I come up with. Okay. Do you recall how I said we weren't going to chisel today? Well, I lied. So we did some chiseling here, just to get these stairs to fit in, but I think this works pretty nicely. And I even chiseled a little counter slope in the ceiling there. So this room's going to have some thin walls, but this wall, since it is a solid surface, we will be able to hang stuff on it, and anything that we place on the floor will be butted up right against it. So that should look fine. I did end up scooting the hearth back 1 block, so right here is where our original center is. We're going to have the chimney effectively be sneaking up and over 1 block this way. And this, right here, will be where the chimney comes up. So I should probably... Actually, yes, we'll do this. Right there. So what we'll have is we will have a chimney coming out here. We will have our fireplace and our fire pit blocks right here and here. And then a little grate and privacy wall here so that we can have fires lit in either place without being able to see through into the other room, disregarding the completely see-through door. And then we can probably chisel these together into the plaster and make them fit, because I want plaster on this side of the door, not bricks. So I think as far as laying out the second floor goes, I think I am pretty happy with what we have. So let's start then on the 3rd floor and see what the different shape of this floor will let us do. I'm thinking either more bedrooms or maybe something else different. Maybe like a showcase room, a dressing room, a tea room, that kind of thing. Or maybe just, like I said, more bedrooms. We'll see. And here is the canvas we have to work with for our 3rd floor. So it's a bit smaller than the other floors, and it has a couple awkward spots, like here. These could be used for something like closets, or maybe just decorations, and I might also bring this in a block or two so that we don't have the roof showing here. In fact, I'd like to cover the whole roof from the inside so that we don't see any of the shingle blocks. And I did curl the stairs around this way rather than having them come up and off to the side, because that way this comes out exactly at the house's center line. And I do want to, of course... Oh. I guess we're not getting a window here. But you know what? We could maybe turn this into some kind of attic space. Storage space. Well, maybe not. This is only going to be 1 block wide. So what I might do instead is I might just block this off again and maybe turn this into some kind of accent wall? I don't know. We'll see. But I might instead maybe punch a window here instead, or maybe even here, just to get some natural light in this side of the house on the 3rd floor. So let's just replace you there. How about that? Let's do that over here too. That was here. There we go. That way also you sort of get a better perspective when you're up here why the house only extends this far. Now on this side we do have the freedom to add a larger window, and I think I'd like to. And I kind of think that this might be a hallway. That means that we will have this nice big window at the end of the hallway to let some light in the stairwell. And then whatever rooms we have over here, I'm thinking it's going to have to be 2 rooms, maybe with like a little closet-y thing. Like here. Just lay this out with some dirt. We have a closet here. We could have maybe this room be kind of narrow, honestly. What are you hiding? Nothing. Well, we could actually take this out then, couldn't we? Ah, that's what you're hiding. Okay. So we might need to replace that block here and probably that block there just for completeness' sake. And we'll need to figure out what to do about this section here on, I guess, all of these 4 sort of pillars. But this might open up a couple extra options. In fact, another thought would be, I did say I wanted to have sort of like a showroom where we could put all of our armor on stands, and we could have display cases that have all of our seashells and random things that we found to show off here. That might be a better use for this floor, in fact. So I'll think about that and see what we can come up with, because this space is kind of awkward. I think maybe having this come up here isn't the best for an upstairs floor with multiple rooms, unless I maybe cut the hallway back to 1 block wide, but then that would get in the way of this window, and we would need to figure something else out for maybe a narrower window. But I don't like that quite as much. Yes, the longer I think about it, the more I'm deciding to use this as a showroom floor, because I don't think that I'd want to have a bedroom up here. I know I would personally never use it, because it just wouldn't make sense to have to run up all these flights of stairs to get to the bedroom. I'd rather just come up 1 set of stairs. So I think we'll just do that. We'll put the bedrooms on the 2nd floor. We'll have our little breakfast balcony here. We'll have this room over here for something, and then we'll have our top floor as a showroom. And maybe also double as a dressing room and sort of fancier storage for some rarer used items. In this case, it might actually be interesting to open this up and maybe make this a little taller, and maybe have a little balcony that overlooks this room here. I think it depends largely on what kind of room we end up turning this into. If this is some kind of like private quarters, then we'll close this off, but if not, it could be a neat accent for both rooms. Okay, well, I'm gonna go and get some of the details in, get some of the furniture in here, and start doing things like shoring up the joints between the floor and the walls so we don't have floating floors or floating ceilings. And we'll see where this takes us. Alright everyone, it's that time again. You've all submitted questions, and it's time for me to answer them while this build montage goes on in the background. Thanks to everyone who submitted a question, and if you'd like to submit one, post it in a comment with the hashtag 20questions. Let's get started. Our first question comes from, and I'm sorry I might butcher this, but Katalin Krishan. Question is, if you had to choose for an epic song to play whenever you introduced yourself, what would it be, and would you like everyone to hear it, or just have it play in your head? Oh boy, if I had to choose? I guess it would have to be something by 2 Steps from Hell. Archangel springs immediately to mind, but I think that might be a bit ridiculous and my family would disown me, so I think I'll stick to it just playing in my head. If you're asking about like a vintage story intro, I think I would want something peaceful or something adventurous but also lighthearted. It would also have to be a short ditty, like 10 seconds or so. Our second question comes from Pnumenvisa. The question is, where did you learn to be so creative when building? Do you have a related job, or is this something that you learned as a child, or by playing games like this one? I think the answer is mostly time and practice. My job has nothing to do with building or anything. When I was a kid, though, I played with Lego a lot. It got me into designing and building things for fun. And then I eventually got into the other block game back in, beta 1.6, which I think was back in 2010 or so, maybe 2011. And I definitely started out as the proud owner of a cobblestone cube, and slowly progressed from there. It's the kind of skill that gets refined over time, and by seeing what other people make, and getting feedback on your builds. And I have definitely ripped design themes and tricks from other YouTubers, or at least drawn a lot of inspiration from them. Our next question is from TJ. Question is, what edition of Dungeons & Dragons do you run, and what is your experience with running other RPGs like Fudge, GURPS, World of Darkness, and so on? So this could be a can of worms, but I play D&D 3.5 pretty exclusively. It is my absolute favorite version of the game, and I have been both running in and playing games in 3.0 and 3.5 for about 20 years. I've played in a couple other editions, notably 4th and 5th, but 4th is too different from that classic D&D feeling, and 5th is alright, but it has training wheels and doesn't have quite enough character customization or world and physics emulation that I like to have, and 3.5 has that, for better or worse. As for other tabletop RPGs, I have played in a few, but I haven't GM'd them. Deadlands Classic, Serenity RPG, Mutants and Masterminds. I think I played one session of Exalted. The only non-D&D RPG I ever ran as the GM was one of my own making. I was on an Armored Core kick, and wanted to build and play a system that let players build and customize their own mechs, but with a different flavor and more story-focused than, say, Battletech. It was a simple system, and the session went really well. We played it once over the summer, and then we all went back to college and never picked it back up. We have 2 questions from Bailey Ravenwick. First question, which was also asked by Captain 92 Morgan, is what feature would you like to see either added, changed, or removed from Vintage Story? This one's a tough one, especially if I have to pick just one feature. For this answer, I'm going to ignore any features that Tyron has publicly acknowledged need work, or which they're already working on, as well as anything already mentioned in the roadmap, or at least what I can recall of it right now. I would modify a feature, that being temporal stability and the drifters related to it. Vintage Story at this point looks mostly like a homesteading game with a few adventure and horror elements, but the eventual goal is to more fully flesh out those horror elements in the fashion of H.P. Lovecraft. I think that drifters that spawn due to players' own low temporal stability should only be visible to that player and other players with low stability. And they should only be able to affect and be affected by players with that low stability. So someone with higher stability would see their friends running around, swinging at thin air, and wounds from invisible sources would spring up on their bodies. But they wouldn't be able to see, fight, feel, or be hurt by the drifters unless and until their own stability dropped far enough. Bailey Ravenwick's second question is, how did you get into Vintage Story? And here I have to say we can praise the almighty YouTube algorithm. I watch a lot of Let's Plays of that other block game, and at some point YouTube suggested Paul Soares Jr.'s Vintage Story Let's Play, back from I think 1.14 or 1.13. Eventually, after weeks of YouTube trying to get me to watch it, I finally did. That sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole, watching a little bit of Julius von Fern, and then a bunch of Ashanton's videos until I decided I needed to get into the game myself. Our last 2 questions are from the Louie Lou. First question, possible future cat cam? This is a maybe, probably not as part of a Vintage Story video, and if I did it, it might be on a second channel at some point, just to keep things tidy around here. I'd kind of prefer to just post pictures or something, in general, because I don't tend to follow my cats around with the camera anyway. Partly because my phone does potato quality video, and partly because life is just too busy for that sometimes. Second question is face reveal, question mark. I haven't decided yet if I want to do a face reveal. If I do, I might want to do it as part of like a big milestone celebration or something, like 1 million subscribers. Okay, maybe more like 10,000. But again, I haven't decided yet if I want to do that, so that's something I'll have to think about. Well everyone, that is all the questions we have lined up for today. I hope you enjoyed my responses, and I can't wait to see what other questions you all submit. Again, if you'd like to submit a question for the segment, leave it in a comment with the hashtag 20questions. I'm going to take my leave now, but enjoy the rest of the build montage, and I'll be back to talk about it when it's done. Thanks again to everyone who submitted a question for this round of 20 questions. Well, everyone, I think we are getting to a close for the detailing in today's episode, but I had a few more things I wanted to do. Let's move our bed upstairs, along with our chest, which is going to have to go separately because our inventory is very full. Let's put our main bed, say, here, and our 7-hour bed right there. Both next to the hearth, but the bed for winter nights closer to the fire. You go there, and you go there. And then to sort of not finish out, but start finishing out our breakfast area, let's make ourselves a little table, like so. And we'll put this there. And let's put a flower pot on it, sort of askew. There we go. And let's fill you with some catmint. I think that looks nice. And then we need some chairs. I believe those are made like so. Yep. These are plain chairs. You can put colored cloth in there, but we are not dyeing cloth today. So there we have some rudimentary chairs for sitting at our breakfast table, where we have no room for breakfast. Whatever, it's fine. And here we have a little tour of what we've done. So we have the second floor fireplace in, with this grate as well, and that is mirrored on this side. I did that all by hand. I probably could have done a copy and rotate, but it seemed prudent to do it by hand. And then we have the chiseled hood here over the fireplace, and I have the sort of fire stop out into the floor. This probably isn't the safest fireplace in the world, but for Vintage Story, it's fine. And then we have these sort of iron railings with walnut railing tops on. And these are actually two separate blocks, the walnut top being a completely separate block. Unfortunately, we can still jump over them, so I have to be careful. But these are made with slate rock. I think they make a nice sort of black painted wrought iron. And then these are just the walnut slabs. We have our second bedroom here, which we'll get a bed eventually. In fact, you know what? I might just move our crummy bed over there, and we will sleep in that room in the summer. Oh, we have friends. Then we have our little clutter shelf with a few vessels and some plants on it. And then we have our upstairs area. And this is still barren, and we will fill this in eventually, once I really figure out what I want to do with the area. And I guess this can maybe go... well, we'll see. I do want to try to bring the chimney up there, which would kind of break up this room a lot, which is making me reconsider whether I want to use it for a showcase room, because sort of a 3x3 area here would be taken up by more fireplace, or just a chimney coming up. We could, again, since smoke inhalation isn't a thing, we could just pretend that this chimney, you know, stops here. But I'd kind of rather not. I'd like to have a chimney or two poking out of our house, just to give it a little more definition from the outside. I will have to come through and put these windows in and chisel them in, and I will do that as time permits, and maybe fill this one in too. I do need to trim these trees away from the windows here, because if you come to our bridge, the trees are kind of all you can see, so I'm going to trim these lower branches out of here and restore our view of the valley below. I have come through, and these are chiseled larch slabs with some plaster underneath them, and I might actually end up not needing as much of that in some places, because I'm kind of considering putting in a walnut trim here, just to give it a little more definition, also to cover up this weird shading thing. I finally got around to finishing our downstairs fireplaces. I have chiseled the bricks into the wall, and I like how that turned out. And I have the hood, which overlaps just a little farther than the base here. And I chiseled the base back as far as I could to allow us to walk through it without getting stuck. But I also wanted to be able to place things on it. That was important. So we can place objects on just this central area. So while we're working on soups and stuff, we can still free up our inventory if we need to, and have something here that we can work with. The clay ovens also got the same treatment with the fireplace. I might not put a lip out here, but I might. Now that I think about it, I think I kind of have to. It's some kind of compulsion. It's really weird. And then back here, because we had the backs of the ovens showing here, I butted this wall out a little bit, and I'm not sure I'm thrilled with it, but it's kind of like the only solution I could think of at the moment, without fully putting like full blocks back here and having our staircase go down like this, which I could still do, and that wouldn't hurt too much. I'm really liking the sort of openness of this area now that this wall is knocked out, so I'm definitely going to keep that. I might add just this corner in here or something, just to give some more definition, but I also was thinking we could put another table here, and we could put another flower pot. There we go. Oh, what the heck? Okay. You're spawning in my basement. Oh, because this guy's out here. Right. I'm still kind of fiddling around with what to do under these stairs. I might just put like a planter here and something in it. And I might continue what I did here, where I put a second set of stairs underneath here and then chisel out these 4 pieces of it, just to give it sort of a neat little design. I might do that up here. In fact, yes I might. Yes I will. But not right now. Anyway, I think that concludes our tour of our interior design here. We will certainly come back to this, and I will most likely spend some time in the next few episodes, or between them, adding a few features here and there, maybe finishing out some of this stuff that I didn't quite get to do, like this. There we go, that's a little better. And this will sort of grow over time. But I am liking this sort of overlook into the parlor down there, whatever that entryway is. We'll call it a parlor, why not? Anyway, everyone, that is about all we have time for in this episode. I hope you liked our exploration in interior decorating, and I hope you liked what the outcome was in the different areas of our house. I think the next few episodes will be dedicated to other changes around the house, other designs, other builds, as well as filling in some details that have been missing for a while. And I am looking forward to seeing what we come up with. Anyway, as always, my name has been Corazar. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.